Across South Korea, before a meal is shared or a conversation begins, there is a pause at the door, a quiet ritual, both simple and sacred. Shoes are removed, feet touch the clean floor, and in that small act, a culture reveals its soul. This is more than hygiene or habit, it is reverence. To cross a threshold barefoot is to honor space, purity, and presence. It is to say, I enter with respect. In a world that rushes forward, South Korea still remembers to bow to its own foundations through the humble, timeless gesture of leaving shoes behind. In South Korea, every home begins at the threshold, a silent line between the outer world and the sacred within. It is here, before a single word is spoken, that respect takes physical form. The act of removing shoes is a greeting, a bow of the body before entering another's world. It is an acknowledgement that one steps not merely into a house, but into someone's heart. This threshold, known as Haengwan, carries more meaning than architecture alone. It divides the public from the private, the dusty street from the clean haven of family life. To leave one's shoes behind is to shed the burdens of the outside world, to purify before belonging. In Korean culture, floors are not just surfaces, they are living spaces. Meals are shared on low tables. Conversations flow while seated cross-legged, and rest comes close to the earth. Cleanliness, therefore, becomes a form of respect, not just for the home, but for the people who inhabit it. To remove one's shoes is to announce presence with humility. It is a ritual that transforms an ordinary entrance into a moment of mindfulness. The gesture may last a second, but its meaning endures, reminding both guest and host that harmony begins with awareness. The origins of Korea's shoe removal custom run deep, rooted in philosophy, environment, and faith. Long before skyscrapers and neon lights, ancient Koreans lived in close relationship with the land. Floors were made of earth, later covered with clay and paper, and cleanliness was essential to comfort. From this practicality grew a principle: purity of space mirrors purity of mind. Buddhism and Confucianism both shaped this reverence. Temples demanded clean feet as symbols of inner discipline, and homes reflected the same order. Dust from the world was left outside, allowing peace to dwell within. The home became not merely shelter, but sanctuary. Confucian ideals reinforced the boundary between the inner and the outer, the sacred and the profane. The removal of shoes expressed not only physical cleanliness, but moral clarity. It taught generations that respect begins in the smallest gestures, that to care for space is to care for the spirit. Thus, purity in Korean culture is not an abstract virtue, but a living rhythm. Every step through a doorway carries this echo of mindfulness, turning daily life into quiet ceremony. What began as simple practicality became moral philosophy, a way of walking through the world with grace, one unshod step at a time. Long before wooden floors and tiles, Koreans lived close to the earth itself. Their homes were built upon soil, warm, breathing ground that carried the rhythm of life. From this intimacy with nature emerged ondol, the radiant floor heating system that turned the ground into a living heart, circulating warmth through every corner of the home. The ondol was more than an invention, it was philosophy made tangible. Warmth flowed beneath the floor, symbolizing care rising from the foundation upward, from parents to children, from earth to soul. It taught generations that comfort begins below, rooted in humility. Because people sat, ate, and slept directly on these heated floors, the home demanded cleanliness. The floor was not something to walk upon casually. It was where families rested, children learned, and ancestors were honored. To tread upon it with dirt was to defile what was pure. Thus, removing shoes became an act of protection, of warmth, of harmony, of respect. The ondol floor was sacred space, a boundary between the outer world of chaos and the inner world of calm. To cross it barefoot was to step, gently, into belonging. In Korea, the home is not merely shelter, it is a moral space, guided by the teachings of Confucianism. Every doorway, every mat, every gesture carries meaning rooted in respect and order. Within these walls, relationships are harmonized by yi, the principle of proper conduct. The act of removing one's shoes at the threshold is one of the earliest lessons in this moral code. Confucianism teaches that purity begins at the boundary between outside and inside. The outer world is a realm of labor, dust, and noise. The inner home is a sanctuary of calm and virtue. To step across that line without removing one's shoes is to bring disorder into harmony, to blur the line between chaos and grace. Each act within the Confucian home, bowing to elders, arranging the table, walking gently across the ondal floor, reinforces the rhythm of hierarchy and care. The removal of shoes is more than hygiene. It is acknowledgement of place, humility, and reverence. It reminds each person that respect begins at the feet, with the smallest of gestures. In this way, the Confucian home became both temple and teacher. Its lessons were not preached, but practiced daily, through silence, through routine, through the quiet removal of shoes before stepping into warmth. It was in this motion that ethics became habit, and habit became culture. Long before Korea's cities rose in glass and steel, its soul lived in the villages, quiet places surrounded by rice fields and mountain winds. In these rural homes, the act of removing shoes was not ceremony, but survival. Mud paths, rain-soaked fields, and earthen courtyards demanded a boundary between the dirt of the world and the purity of the living space. Inside, floors were sacred. The ondal system, with its warm stones radiating heat beneath thin paper mats, made every step personal and intimate. To enter with shoes would not only soil the home, but insult the labor that kept it clean. Each family member knew instinctively where the outside ended and the heart of the home began. In these villages, daily life followed the rhythm of the land. Shoes waited at the door beside woven straw sandals and wooden clogs, their presence a silent testimony to discipline and respect. Visitors, too, followed this custom without question, for even the humblest hut was treated as sacred ground. The rural transition was not a rule written in law, but in living. It reflected a people in harmony with their environment, where cleanliness was not luxury, but respect, where even the poorest home carried the dignity of order. Removing one's shoes was both a courtesy and a connection, to earth, to tradition, to one another. In today's Korea, the skyline gleams with towers of glass and light, yet within every home, an old ritual still guards the doorway. Before stepping onto polished floors or soft-heated tiles, shoes are quietly removed, a gesture that connects modern life to timeless roots. Even in the sleekest Seoul apartment, the entrance, or haengwan, remains a sacred threshold between the chaos outside and the calm within. This space, small yet symbolic, carries the same spirit that guided ancestors in wooden hammocks. It is where the dirt of the world is left behind and the purity of the home begins. Slippers line neatly by the door, a quiet choreography of order and mindfulness. The act is never forced. It flows naturally, as though every step remembers the lessons of centuries past. In these homes, technology hums softly. Air purifiers, heated floors, automatic doors. Yet the bowing of heads and the removal of shoes remind all that progress need not erase humility. Cleanliness remains both physical and spiritual, a reflection of respect for those who share the space and for the home itself, still viewed as a living soul. Here, tradition and modernity do not compete, they coexist. The gesture that once defined village life now defines urban grace. By removing their shoes, Koreans honor an invisible continuity, proving that even as time transforms everything else, the foundation of respect remains untouched beneath their feet. In the Korean home, cleanliness is not only a matter of hygiene, it is a reflection of spirit. The floor, where family members sit, eat, and rest, must remain pure. To step upon it with shoes would not just bring dirt, but disturbance, a violation of harmony that the home carefully preserves. The clean floor becomes a mirror of the mind, calm, uncluttered, receptive. Long before modern cleaning products and robotic vacuums, Korean families swept their homes with quiet devotion. Mothers wiped the wooden floors of hanok houses until they gleamed, teaching their children that tidiness was an act of respect, not vanity. A spotless floor was not a boast of wealth, but proof of inner discipline. This belief endures. In contemporary apartments, people still slip into soft house slippers or walk barefoot, honoring that unspoken philosophy. The purity of one's environment shapes the purity of one's thoughts. Dust, clutter, and noise are gently kept outside, allowing serenity to dwell within. Clean floor, clean mind is more than a saying, it is a way of living. It reminds Koreans that harmony begins in the smallest gestures, in the act of keeping one's home, one's thoughts, and one's heart unsoiled. Every sweep, every gentle footstep upon the warm floor becomes a meditation, a quiet practice of peace. To remove one's shoes in Korea is to cross an invisible threshold from the outer world into the inner realm of peace. The gesture is small, almost unthinking, yet filled with meaning. It is the moment when footsteps slow, the noise of the streets fades, and the heart prepares for stillness. What seems like habit is, in truth, a quiet ceremony, an act that transforms space into sanctuary. Within every home, this ritual whispers an ancient truth. Purity begins where reverence dwells. The dust of the outside world, its chaos, its hurry, its burdens, must be left at the door. In that single act, Koreans affirm that the home is sacred, that its calm should remain untouched by the storms of the world beyond. It is not simply cleanliness, it is clarity, the cleansing of both floor and mind. When guests remove their shoes, they do more than respect custom, they participate in harmony. Each pair left neatly by the entrance speaks of humility and equality. No matter who enters, friend or stranger, rich or poor, all meet barefoot upon the same ground. The gesture dissolves distance, creating unity through simplicity. And so, across centuries and generations, the act endures. Even in glass apartments and neon cities, the sound of shoes slipping off remains unchanged, a soft echo of tradition in a modern age. It reminds every Korean that beneath progress lies something purer than dust, the enduring grace of respect. In a world racing toward convenience, South Korea reminds us that meaning often hides in the smallest gestures. To remove one's shoes is to pause, to honor the space, the people, and the self. It is a quiet act of mindfulness, a bow of the body before the heart. Within that pause lives centuries of culture, carried gently into the present. The home becomes more than shelter. It becomes memory, balance, and belonging. And as every footstep begins again, the soul walks lighter, cleansed not by water or ritual, but by the simple grace of respect. As the story of Korea's quiet threshold comes to a close, one truth remains. Respect endures where awareness begins. What started as a simple act of removing shoes became a language of grace, spoken not through words, but through stillness. In the rhythm of daily life, this ritual has carried centuries of meaning, connecting hearts across time. Every doorway holds memory. Every floor remembers the gentle weight of footsteps that once paused in reverence. The act endures, not as duty, but as devotion, to purity, to harmony, to peace within the home. And in that peace, generations find continuity, reminding us that progress need not erase tradition. The gesture is simple, yet timeless, a pause before belonging. It asks nothing and offers everything: quiet, humility, and respect. In a changing world, such gestures keep humanity grounded, reminding us that the smallest actions often hold the deepest truths. This is the essence of Korea, a culture where silence speaks, where stillness teaches, and where the floor beneath one's feet becomes a mirror of the soul. Here, in AfterTIme, we travel beyond the surface, finding meaning where others see only moments. Every gesture, every silence, every heartbeat holds a story, and we're here to tell it. From timeless traditions to unseen corners of human life, AfterTIme captures what endures when the world moves too fast to notice. If this story touched you, let it live on, not just in thought, but in action. Like the video, share it, and let the echo of these stories reach others who still believe in meaning. Subscribe to AfterTIme and step with us into more worlds where time slows, beauty breathes, and respect still stands quietly beneath our feet. Because here, stories don't end. They wait, softly, to be remembered. This is AfterTIme, where every moment, no matter how small, becomes eternal.